Welcome back to Bog Panda. Tonight we're going to talk about Kelly, something that Kelly loves, but we're going to do it through me. I am Dr. Mike at Official Pagan on everything. Joining me as always.
Hi, everybody. This is Kelly at KELLYTHUL on social media. And we would really appreciate it if you take a look at that YouTube channel called Buck Panda and maybe subscribe to it. Check a few of the videos out, give them some likes, comments. We love hearing from folks. And if you do that, we're going to give you exclusive to all our viewers and anyone else who looks, but all our viewers,
But
Hard
definitely you
No,
guys.
the world's shortest podcast, completely free, daily, every day free, like a lot. So every day. Speaking as someone who edits these and has to get them ready, there's a lot of them. So, um, but check out Hard No. It's really fun, and it's only a minute of your time. What could go wrong? And as you're listening to that, you'll need to be quick, or listen to multiple Hard No's. But you can go to our merch store and start looking at these fantastic array of T-shirts, including T-shirts tied to our holiday special. All sorts of things that are out there right now. So, and if you don't know what that is, go watch the Halloween special, and you'll see the T-shirt tie-in on there. But check out the merch store as well.
Yes, and tonight we're here to talk about something that Kelly really introduced me to. So we're both, I feel like I can say we're both big Commodore guys. Me for the C64 and Kelly for the Amiga. I had a little bit of vague familiarity with Amiga, mostly because of being a Sega Genesis guy. There's a lot of games that were ported back and forth between them. Not a programmer, so I don't know the intricacies of this or the proper terminology. But apparently, from when I was reading, they had a similar enough architecture that it was pretty easy to port stuff back and forth between them. So that's where a lot of that came from. But Kelly really introduced me to Amiga, and I've really gotten into it. I really like Amiga. I like a lot of what I played on there. There's a lot of great stuff on there. It's also cool to try different versions of games that I played, like to compare the Genesis version to the Amiga version for some of those ports has been pretty interesting. But through Kelly's tutelage and his delicate guidance, I've become a big fan. And Amiga games have started popping up now. There was one or two in a couple of scattered collections, but now they're getting their own collections for the Evercade. And I just happen to have mine here because I was playing before, before we started doing this. I would love to say that I was ready with a prop because I had prepared, but it just happened to be sitting in front of me on this table. So I'm an Evercade guy. Evercade handheld. They have three different iterations of it now. This is the OG original handheld. Then there's the Versus, which is an actual console, and that has two cartridge slots because each of these cartridges has multiple games. That allows you to have multiple games at the ready. Still giving you the nostalgia of a cartridge, but because there's multiple games on there, you're not constantly switching cartridges in and out. So it's kind of a little bit of both meeting in the middle. It's not as convenient as, say, an emulator, but better than, but more of that nostalgia kick that an emulator is going to give you. And now they have the Evercade XP, which it gives you a vertical mode and is enhanced in pretty much every way. I'm a big fan of this platform. I'm a big fan of the cartridges, and now they're doing Amiga stuff. So I have two of their Amiga releases now, the Amiga centric releases, not just the ones that have one or two scattered games. The Team 17 one, which is what I believe I have in here now. Yes, it is. And of course, the Delphine software. Anybody who doesn't know who they are, they're probably most famous for making Shaq Fu.
Well, maybe not exactly.
I would say. And so I both of those collections, I've been playing them both a lot. Really great selection of games on both of them. Now, one thing that is interesting with it, Kelly also has the Amiga Mini. So I'd really be curious the next time Kelly and I are together in person. I would love for him to play these games on here to see how they stack up to the emulation on the Mini. I think that would be a cool comparison. I haven't seen anybody do that, so that's our idea. And if you steal it, we'll sue you. So, to be fair, I haven't seen anybody compare them, but they seem to play really great. Now, you do need for some of these computer based collections they're putting out, because there's a couple of Commodore 64 collections as well. You do need to update the software on there, which was an interesting thing for me because I have the original, the OG Evercade. So the software update's not quite as easy on that one for this. So you do have to download some files and things and then copy them over to this, attaching this to your computer through a USB drive, as opposed to just going on the Wi-Fi and downloading it directly to your device. Again, though, not super difficult. And what's cool is these collections do work across all three versions. There are some cartridges now that are not compatible with all three versions. Vertical games, for example, on the XP, and some of the larger cartridges for the Versus that have arcade games and things on them don't work on the original handheld. But these do, many of the games work across all three, and these do as well as long as you have that update in there. So what are your thoughts on, Amiga games as cartridge games for these handhelds?
So I think there's a ton of great Amiga stuff out there, and the more platforms you can make it available on, especially a really good platform like Evercade is, where you've got some options, I think that's great. I I wish they had. I mean, I get it in terms of just capability start to change, but the more they would have made their cartridges truly universal across all the platforms, that would be better. Maybe you have to do a firmware update like you're talking about, but and I kind of get not wanting vertical games on a platform that's not built to display that very well on all that. But I like to see it, and particularly the only downside I see, and I've just kind of seen this on the Mini a little bit, and when I've got so many games on my Super Console X and kind of other emulation pathways, is the a lot of the really great Amiga games have a keyboard component. And so if you're playing kind of strictly with a handheld, or the Mini comes with the Amiga Mini comes with a mouse and like the CD32 controller pad. It's fairly easy to bring up a pop-up of the keyboard, but which is okay for menuing or that. But if you're using that to change your inventory and all that kind of stuff, it's not great. So I think it's really cool to make it available. I just think there needs to be some caution in terms of, there are certain Amiga games that are great, but will be a very unpleasant experience if you don't have a keyboard option.
Yeah, and that's something I was thinking too. I mean, on these two collections, it really doesn't come into play. The Delphine software stuff is their cinematic platformers that they're known for, and the stuff on the Team 17 release is like three of the Alien Breed games and a few other things like that. So it's stuff that you can get away with on a regular, D-pad and buttons kind of thing. But I was thinking, if they keep doing these collections, at some point they're going to be limiting themselves, because it is a computer. There is games that are going to require a mouse and keyboard. And yeah, you can pull up, a virtual keyboard on the screen, but that's inconvenient when it's on my TV. I can't imagine on a smaller handheld situation.
Yeah, it Space Quest, which I mean the Space Quest series, love that on the Amiga from Sierra Software. Um, I've got copies of multiple ones of that on my RG35XX. um, One, it's a game that you pretty much keyboard's kind of handy for, and two, it's basically impossible to play on that small screen from there. So it's a matter of picking. There are certain games that are not going to translate into certain form factors. Just that's the way it is.
And one thing I would point out to everybody too, if you buy the Delphine software collection, the cover artwork is slightly misleading. It's got a big Amiga logo across the bottom, letting you know these are the Amiga versions of the games, because a number of those games were ported to multiple systems. And again, there have been some Amiga versions of games on other collections, but they weren't Amiga specific collections. The Delphine software is being sold as an Amiga collection, The version of Flashback that is on there, though, is not the Amiga version of Flashback. And if you read the fine print on the back of the case, it does explain that to you, and it does go into more detail on that in the booklet with it. But that is actually, they just call it the console version. It's the Genesis version of the game, which makes sense. The game was actually developed, their other games were developed on Amiga. This was developed specifically on Genesis. And every other version of it is a port of the Genesis version. So even though the Amiga and Genesis are very similar because of the similar architecture we were talking about earlier, it is the Genesis version that's on here. Again, it makes sense because that's the original version of it. And I read a couple of things with the creators who say that that's their favorite version of the game since that's what they initially developed it on.
Sure.
So it makes sense that that would be on there. But again, if you're buying this as an Amiga collection, you should be aware that that one particular game is the Genesis version.
So the Alien Breed, you got you got the 3 Alien Breed.
It's Alien Breed, the special edition of the first one, Alien Breed 2, and Alien Breed Tower Assault. It doesn't have 3D on there.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think on the. I'm getting confused with all my consoles now, but Amiga Mini Alien Breed, it's got Alien Breed and Alien Breed 3D. And then I think the Towers one I've got on my RG35XX. So, too many.
The Towers one I have not played.
It's fun games, though.
Yeah, I like the Alien Breed games. There's a lot of good games on there. There's the Body Blows is on there, which I'm familiar with, and a bunch of other things that I've played in various forms over time. So these are both really great collections. Again, for the hardcore Amiga fans, it's the Genesis version of Flashback. Those are very similar, though. I have learned recently that there are some ports of Flashback that are very, very different. I don't know. Have you played any of the CD-ROM versions of Flashback, Kelly?
I have not.
I recommend it just to see kind of what you think of them. Those are different. Um, some of the ports, like the Super Nintendo version, for example, I don't really recommend. It's the same as the Genesis and Amiga game, just slower because the Super Nintendo had a slower processor. Um, the Jaguar version is great. It's the same as those, but faster because it has more horsepower, things like that. When you get into the CD-ROM versions, and I'd heard this before, I guess, and it just never really clicked that it had different cutscenes. The cutscenes are like full 3D animation, so completely redone cutscenes for the CD-ROM version. I played it on 3DO, and it's weird. It's very jarring because they don't match. Like the actual gameplay stages are still the same from the Genesis and Amiga versions. So it's really jarring because you're getting pulled out for these cutscenes that in no way match what you're looking at. So I'm not a fan personally.
Yeah, the polygon count probably went way up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a totally different animation style. Even like the color palette of them doesn't really match. And apparently that wasn't just the 3DO, the PC CD and Sega CD versions do that as well. They have these redone cutscenes on there. So I had never seen it until recently. It's interesting. I do recommend the Jaguar version though, just because it's the same game we're used to, but just plays a little smoother.
Cool. So there's you bought 2 Amiga collections, Amiga centric collections,
Yes.
and is that all they have right now, or do they have more? Is that the extent
So
of it?
of Amiga collections, those are the only 2 right now. I believe so. The Team 17 one is like Amiga Collection Volume 1 or something like that. I believe Volume 2 was already announced, but isn't out yet.
Gotcha. Cool. Favorite so far? Favorite game?
As far as the game or the collection.
Game.
Well, I mean, I'm very partial to Out of This World and Flashback.
Sure.
So yeah, those
Hard
those
not to
games
love.
are
Yeah.
the ones I've spent the most time with.
Yep. Yeah. That's good choices. But yeah, that's. I mean, it's great. It's great to see being an Amiga fan. It's great to see some of the stuff make their way out there. I'll just have to. I mean, I'll have to look and see because this was another one I had trouble getting functioning on my RG35XX. Um, Things like It Came from the Desert, um, and all the CinemaWare TV sports stuff is great. But again, to where like a TV sports basketball is the most fun is you can go in and create your own rosters, build a whole league of teams, and have just, and then it'll track, it'll AI, or well, not, no, yeah, but it'll simulate all the other games. And so you'll have the games going on. You'll play your game against different folks. And it's so you can play a full season, go playoffs, all that good stuff. But if you're going in and you're creating players and giving them names and all that good stuff, which is part of the real charm of it, it really lends itself to playing that on a PC or an Amiga. So,
Yeah, I would imagine that would really get tedious trying to use a on-screen keyboard, especially on something like A&L.
so anything else on the Amiga collection, sir?
No, no, I'm going to continue playing it. I'm looking forward to more volumes. My Evercade collection is growing. I believe I have 10 cartridges now, and these range from like 3 or 4 games up to, I believe the initial Atari collection had 20 games on there for the 2600 games. It was a mix of 2600 and 7800 games on there, but I believe that's 20 games. So I have a good stockpile of games, and of course Duke Nukem is pre-ordered. Just waiting on that one.
But not the fancy smancy versus console for Duke, right?
No, unfortunately, I missed
Missed
that
out on
one.
that.
Yeah, but I have a Nintendo 64 now.
Yeah, so that's something. There you go.
Yeah,
And you can put a Duke Nukem sticker on it.
yeah, it's the same. It's just like it.
There you go. Cool. Well, we'll maybe we'll have a Duke Nukem themed Bog Boy when we get our still under
The world's
development.
greatest system.
That's right. I think it's going to be blue instead of red for the images you can't see, but we're still working with the crack development team on working out all the kinks on the Bog
Dark
Boy.
gray on black. That's
LCD. It'll be a true LCD experience.
no backlight.
Oh boy, cool. Well, maybe not, but let us know if you're Everhead. I don't know what, but if you are a big Evercade fan, Dr. Mike's been on this from the beginning, early adopter. If you are, which platform are you using? Of the Evercade stuff, and let us know what your favorite collection so far is, or games for it, because I'm still going back and forth. I would have totally gotten the Duke Nukem thing. That didn't work out. I'm not really sure what I do with it yet another console, but it was Duke Nukem and it had to do it. But it's too slow on the trigger on that. But we'll continue to look. There'll likely be an Evercade here. The RG35XX has done a nice job in terms of portable gaming for me, but there's some nice. It's all sweat equity for me to get the games on the RG35XX, where with the Evercade, they take care of some of that for you. So that'd be all right. Cool. Anything else like to add before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's it for now. More Evercade, more Nintendo 64, of course, more Alice Cooper, and definitely more Doom coming.
Bog Panda.